23 years of marriage disappeared in the time it took to switch 2 champagne glasses. The crystal chandeliers of Giovanni's restaurant sparkled above our anniversary celebration as family gathered around us. I raised my glass to toast Melissa, the woman who'd been my partner through raising our daughter and building our life together. That's when the waiter leaned close, whispering words that would shatter everything. "Sir, I saw your wife put something in your drink when you were greeting your brother-in-law." In that heartbeat, I made a choice that would save my life and reveal the truth. With a casual smile, I switched our glasses before anyone noticed. What would you do if the person who vowed to love you for life tried to poison your celebration toast? This is how I discovered the betrayal, exposed the truth, and reclaimed my dignity after 2 decades of lies. "To 23 years, I said, looking into Melissa's eyes across the table. "To the woman who made me believe in forever." Our family had gathered at Giovanni's, the same restaurant where I'd proposed nearly a quarter-century ago. White tablecloths, crystal glasses, and the gentle piano music created the perfect backdrop for our celebration. Our daughter Chloe beamed from her seat beside her mother, while my brother-in-law Ethan and his wife Julia completed our intimate circle. Earlier that day, I'd noticed something odd about Melissa, a nervous energy I couldn't quite place. She'd changed outfits 3 times and checked her phone constantly. I'd attributed it to anniversary excitement, even feeling touched by what I thought was her desire to make the evening perfect. "Dad, you guys are still my relationship goals," Chloe said, raising her water glass. At 19, she still looked at our marriage with the idealism of childhood, something that had always made me proud. Ethan arrived last, greeting Melissa with a kiss on the cheek that lingered just a beat too long. "Sorry we're late," he said, his hand resting briefly on my wife's shoulder. "Traffic was terrible." I stood to greet them, embracing Julia warmly. "We wouldn't start without you. This celebration is about family as much as marriage." The waiter appeared with champagne, pouring for each of us as I prepared to give my anniversary toast. I caught him watching Melissa with an odd expression as I turned to greet an old friend at a nearby table. When I returned to our table, the champagne glasses stood filled and waiting. As I reached for mine, the waiter appeared at my elbow, ostensibly adjusting the table setting. "Sir," he murmured, his voice barely audible, "I need to tell you something. I saw your wife put something in your glass when you were greeting your friend. Some kind of powder. I'm sorry, but I couldn't stay silent." Time seemed to stop. My hand froze mid-air as I processed his words. 23 years of trust, challenged in an instant. I glanced at Melissa, who was laughing at something Ethan said, completely at ease. My mind raced. Was this some terrible mistake? Or was my wife of 23 years attempting to harm me during our anniversary celebration? I made my decision in seconds. With practiced calm from decades in financial analysis, I casually picked up both glasses as if inspecting the champagne in the light. "Beautiful," I commented, then set Melissa's glass in front of me and mine in front of her with a smooth, barely noticeable switch. No one noticed. Not Chloe, engrossed in showing Julia pictures on her phone. Not Ethan, who was checking his watch. And certainly not Melissa, who gave me a smile that now seemed hollow. "Everyone," I said, my voice steady despite the earthquake inside me, "I'd like to propose a toast to family, to loyalty, and to truth." The words tasted bitter now. To many more years of health and happiness. We clinked glasses. I watched carefully as Melissa took a deep sip from what she thought was my glass. I pretended to drink from mine. Within 10 minutes, I noticed the change. Melissa's speech slowed slightly, her eyelids grew heavy, and she stumbled over simple words. Whatever she'd put in the drink was taking effect. on her. "Melissa, are you feeling all right?" Julia asked, noticing my wife's increasingly slurred speech and unfocused eyes. "I'm fine," Melissa insisted, though she clearly wasn't. "Just a little tired." I adopted the concerned husband role, a performance that felt surreal. "Honey, maybe we should call it a night. You don't look well." "But the anniversary, our celebration," she protested weakly, her coordination visibly deteriorating. Ethan jumped in with unusual eagerness. "Melissa should definitely rest." "I can help you get her to the car, Liam." I caught the too familiar way he said my wife's name, another piece clicking into place. "Thanks, but I've got her. We should probably head home." "Such a shame," Chloe said, disappointment clear in her voice. "Mom seemed fine earlier." As I helped Melissa stand, I discreetly caught the waiter's eye and mouthed, "Thank you." He nodded gravely. In the privacy of our car, with Melissa slumped against the window, reality crashed down on me. My wife of 23 years had attempted to drug me at our anniversary dinner, surrounded by our family. The question was, why? "What did you put in my drink, Melissa?" I asked quietly, knowing she was too impaired to maintain her lies. She mumbled. "Nothing. Why would I?" Her head lolled as the drug, whatever it was, took deeper hold. I drove home in silence, my mind meticulously cataloging the warning signs I'd missed. Melissa's increased secrecy with her phone, the unexplained yoga classes that left her smelling of unfamiliar cologne, the strange calls that ended when I entered the room. At home, I helped her to bed, where she immediately fell into a heavy sleep. I sat beside her for a long moment, studying the face I thought I knew better than my own. Who was this woman I'd shared my life with? And what had she been planning to do once I was incapacitated? I knew one thing with certainty. I needed answers, and I wouldn't find them by confronting her directly, not yet. Whatever game Melissa was playing, I needed to understand the rules before making my next move. As she slept, I made my decision. Tomorrow, I would begin my own investigation into the stranger I'd married. With Melissa in drug-induced sleep, I began my investigation in the darkened bedroom. Her phone lay charging on her nightstand, the same phone she'd been guarding so carefully in recent months. I picked it up, hesitating only briefly before entering her passcode. And after 23 years, I knew her patterns, and the code hadn't changed. Our anniversary date, ironically enough. What I found shattered any lingering doubt. Dozens of text messages between Melissa and Ethan. Not the innocent exchanges of in-laws, but intimate conversations filled with explicit content and veiled references to their future. The texts dated back months. "When will you tell him?" Ethan had asked just last week. "After the anniversary, everything's arranged," Melissa had replied. I found a hidden folder of photos, Ethan and Melissa together in locations I didn't recognize. Hotel receipts, screenshots of bank transfers to an account I didn't know existed. My hands trembled as I scrolled through a chat from earlier that day. Ethan: "Tonight's the night. Are you ready?" Melissa: "Everything's prepared. After it's done, we'll have what we need." My breathing quickened as the implication became clear. The anniversary dinner wasn't just a celebration. It was meant to be a setup. But for what? Incapacitation. Something worse. A business card fell from Melissa's purse as I searched it, a private investigator. Not a contact I knew she had. Had she been investigating me? Or preparing for something else? I carefully replaced everything exactly as I'd found it. My financial analyst's mind already calculating my next move. I wouldn't confront her with emotion and accusations. I would approach this methodically, gathering evidence, just as I'd done throughout my career when numbers didn't add up. By dawn's first light, I knew my marriage had been a lie. Now I needed to know how deep the deception went. Melissa awakened with what appeared to be a terrible hangover, though we both knew it was something else entirely. "I don't understand what happened," she groaned over coffee, eyes bloodshot and hands shaky. "I only had one glass of champagne." "Maybe something didn't agree with you," I suggested mildly, playing along. "The doctor always said you were sensitive to certain medications." She nodded weakly, seemingly relieved by my explanation. "I'm so sorry about ruining our anniversary." "Don't worry about it. Rest today. I have a work emergency I need to handle, but I'll be back this afternoon." The lie came easily, perhaps because I'd been living in one for who knew how long. An hour later, I sat in the office of Frank Reynolds, private investigator. His credentials covered the wall: 30 years of experience specializing in marital investigations and financial misconduct. "Tell me what brings you here, Mr. Grayson," he said, his expression neutral, but his eyes sharp and assessing. I laid out the facts with the precision that had served me well in my financial career: the anniversary dinner, the waiter's warning, the drugged drink, the text messages, my suspicions about Melissa and Ethan. "I need to know everything," I concluded. "The extent of their relationship, any financial arrangements they've made, and most importantly, what exactly they were planning once I was drugged." Frank nodded, making notes. "Unfortunately, this isn't my first case involving attempted drugging. The fact that a substance was involved escalates this beyond a typical infidelity investigation. We should consider involving law enforcement." "Not yet," I said firmly. "I need evidence first. Complete evidence." "Understood. We'll begin surveillance immediately. I'll need access to your financial records to trace any unusual activity, and I'd recommend consulting with a divorce attorney as soon as possible." The word divorce hung in the air, the first time it had been spoken aloud. After 23 years, it seemed impossible. Yet the evidence was already pointing to a conclusion I couldn't ignore. "I have a colleague, Catherine Wells. Best family law attorney in the state, discreet and thorough." He slid her card across the desk. As I signed the investigation contract, Frank added, "Mr. Grayson, maintain normalcy at home. If they suspect you know anything, they may accelerate whatever they're planning." I nodded, already thinking like the strategic analyst I'd been for decades. "I can give a performance when needed. I'll have the first report?" 72 hours, Frank promised. "Sooner if we find anything urgent." Sunday lunch had been our tradition since Chloe was little. Despite everything, I maintained the ritual, watching my wife with new eyes as she prepared Chloe's favorite pasta dish. "Mom, you seem much better today," Chloe observed, helping set the table. "Just a bad reaction to something," Melissa said, her performance flawless. "I feel terrible about ruining our special dinner." I studied her, the woman I'd shared my bed with for over 2 decades. Had she always been this accomplished at deception, or was it a skill she'd developed over time? The phone rang, and Melissa answered it with a casual, "Hello?" Her expression changed subtly when she heard the caller. "Oh, hi, Ethan. Yes, I'm feeling much better. Thanks for checking." I noticed what I'd missed before, how her voice softened when speaking to him, how she turned slightly away, creating artificial privacy in our kitchen. "Your uncle is so thoughtful," she told Chloe after hanging up, but her eyes flicked to me, measuring my reaction. "He's always been close to the family," I commented neutrally. Lunch progressed with surreal normalcy. I asked Chloe about her college classes. We discussed summer plans, all while I mentally cataloged inconsistencies in Melissa's stories about recent weeks. "Remember when you had that gallery opening last month?" I asked casually. "What was the artist's name again?" Julia was asking about it. "Oh, Richards." "Jonathan Richards," Melissa answered without hesitation. A lie. I'd checked her calendar that morning. There was no gallery event that night, but she'd come home late, smelling of wine and wearing different earrings than when she left. After lunch, while Melissa took a call in the garden, Chloe helped me with dishes. "Dad, is everything okay between you and Mom?" The question caught me off guard. "Why do you ask?" "I don't know. Something feels different." My perceptive daughter, seeing beneath the surface even when I hadn't. My phone vibrated with a text. Frank Reynolds. "Need to meet. Found something. My office. 1 hour." "Everything's fine," I assured Chloe, hating the lie, but knowing it was necessary for now. "Just work stress. Speaking of which, I need to handle something at the office. Back in a few hours." As I left, I caught Melissa sending a text, smiling to herself in a way I now recognized wasn't meant for me. "I've been doing this job for 30 years, Mr. Grayson," Frank said, spreading photos across his desk. "But I still hate this part." The images told the story my heart had refused to believe. Melissa and Ethan entering a hotel together. Intimate moments captured through restaurant windows. His hand on her waist, her lips on his neck. The timestamps showed meetings 3 times weekly for at least 2 months. "These are from the Marriott on Westlake," Frank explained, indicating hotel receipts. "They've been meeting there regularly, always checking in under his name, always paying cash for incidentals. But I tracked the room charges to a credit card you don't know about." He slid a financial statement toward me. A card in Melissa's name, bills going to a P.O. box, payments made from an account I didn't recognize. "There's more," Frank continued. "I placed a legal recording device in your brother-in-law's car after confirming their regular meeting pattern." He pressed play on a small recorder. Melissa's voice filled the room. "The anniversary dinner is perfect timing. Everyone will be there to witness his medical episode. With his family history of heart problems, no one will question it." Ethan's response chilled me. "And you're sure about the dosage? We don't want any accidents." I researched it carefully. It'll just seem like he's had too much to drink. Maybe a bad reaction to medication. Julia will insist on taking him to the hospital. You'll offer to drive, and I'll handle everything from there. And afterward? Once he's declared incompetent to manage his affairs, the power of attorney kicks in. We'll have access to everything, the house, retirement accounts, insurance. Within 6 months, we can be together openly." Frank stopped the recording. "There's more, but you get the picture." I sat in stunned silence. Not just an affair, but a calculated plan to declare me incompetent. To steal not just my wife, but everything I'd worked for over a lifetime. "There's one more thing you should see," Frank said quietly, sliding a document across the desk. "Your wife consulted with a divorce attorney 3 months ago. But not just any attorney, one specializing in cases involving mental incompetence." I studied the consultation notes Frank had somehow obtained. References to incapacity strategy and asset protection during spouse's medical crisis left little doubt about Melissa's intentions. "What do you recommend?" I asked, my voice steady despite the storm inside. "I've already contacted Catherine Wells. She's expecting your call. In cases like this, Mr. Grayson, time is not your friend." With Melissa at her yoga class, now obviously a cover for meeting Ethan, I conducted a thorough search of our home office. Years in financial analysis had taught me that people leave paper trails no matter how careful they think they're being. Behind the false bottom of Melissa's desk drawer, a hiding place I'd built for her birthday gifts years ago, I found what I was looking for. Bank statements for an account in her name only, opened 18 months earlier. Regular transfers from our joint account, always just below the amount that would trigger my attention. A rental application for an apartment across town, dated 3 weeks ago. Approved. Life insurance documents with recent beneficiary changes. A USB drive contained spreadsheets detailing our assets, with notes on what could be liquidated quickly and what would require his signature or proof of incapacity. I photographed everything methodically, my hands steady despite the betrayal each document represented. This wasn't just an affair. It was a calculated dismantling of our life together, planned with cold precision. My phone rang. My financial advisor returning my earlier call. "Liam, you were right to be concerned," he said. "There have been several unusual transactions from your joint investment account. Withdrawals just below the notification threshold. Started about 6 months ago. Collectively, about $120,000 has been moved." "Can you freeze the accounts?" I asked. "With both your signatures, yes, or with a court order. I'll have my attorney contact you tomorrow." As I hung up, I heard Melissa's car in the driveway, returning earlier than expected. I quickly returned everything to its hiding place, my mind racing with the implications of what I'd discovered. The woman who had promised to share my life had been systematically preparing to take it from me. 3 days later, I told Melissa I had a breakfast meeting with clients, but instead parked 2 blocks away and returned on foot. A calculated risk, but I needed to know if my presence was altering their plans. I entered through our rarely used side door, moving silently through the house until I heard voices from the kitchen, Melissa and Ethan speaking freely, believing themselves alone. "We need a new approach," Ethan was saying, his voice frustrated. "Whatever happened at the restaurant, it's delayed everything." "It was that waiter," Melissa hissed. "He was watching me too closely. I couldn't get the full dose in the drink." "Could he have said something to Liam?" A pause. "I don't think so. Liam's been normal. Clueless, as always." The casual contempt in her voice struck deeper than I'd expected. "We need to move quickly," Ethan continued. "Julia's asking questions about those late nights at the office, and the lease on the apartment starts next month." "The family brunch on Sunday," Melissa decided. "We'll try again there." "It's perfect. Everyone will be there to witness his episode. We just need to be more careful with the timing." "And if it doesn't work?" "Then we move to Plan B. The important thing is getting control of his assets before he has any reason to suspect. Once that's done, it doesn't matter what he knows. No one will believe him anyway." Ethan laughed softly. "Next time, he won't be so lucky." I slipped out as silently as I'd entered, cold determination replacing the shock and hurt. They had shown me who they were and what they intended. Now it was time to protect myself and Chloe from whatever they were planning. As I drove to Catherine Wells' office, my course was clear. I would no longer be reactive. From this moment forward, I would be the architect of what happened next. Catherine Wells's office reflected her reputation, meticulously organized, professional, and discreet. Awards and credentials lined the walls, and her handshake was firm as she greeted me. "Frank briefed me on your situation, Mr. Grayson. I'm very sorry you're going through this." "Thank you. I prefer to focus on solutions rather than sympathy at this point." She nodded approvingly. "Then let's get to it. I've reviewed the evidence Frank provided. The affair alone would be straightforward, but the drugging attempt and financial misdealings elevate this considerably." For the next hour, we developed a comprehensive strategy. Catherine explained how we could use the evidence to secure the most favorable divorce terms. Given the documented attempt to drug you and the recorded conversation about declaring you incompetent, we have grounds for an emergency injunction freezing all your assets, she explained. Additionally, we can petition for exclusive use of the marital home during proceedings. And Chloe? I asked. Though she was an adult, protecting her from the fallout remained my priority. At 19, there's no custody issue, but the court will consider her well-being. The evidence suggests your wife was willing to harm you for financial gain. No judge would view that favorably. We discussed timing, Catherine tapping her pen thoughtfully. The family brunch you mentioned presents an interesting opportunity. If they're planning another attempt there, we could have papers served immediately after. With family present as witnesses, it limits her ability to control the narrative. What about Ethan? His wife Julia doesn't deserve this blindsiding. I'd suggest speaking with her privately beforehand. She may become an important ally, and it's the decent thing to do. As we finalized our approach, Catherine handed me a thick folder. Your divorce petition, ready for filing. Review it tonight. We can submit it Monday morning and have it served at your family gathering. I studied the document that would end 23 years of marriage. Despite everything, it felt momentous. One last thing, Catherine added. Until this is resolved, don't eat or drink anything your wife prepares. Based on the recordings, I don't think we can be too cautious. As I left, the weight of the manila folder seemed to embody the gravity of what lay ahead. Not just the end of a marriage, but the exposure of a betrayal that would reshape our entire family. I arranged to meet Julia at her workplace, a neutral location where we wouldn't be observed. As Ethan's wife and Melissa's close friend for over 20 years, she deserved to hear the truth directly from me. The community college where she taught art was quiet that afternoon. Her office reflected her creative spirit. Student artwork on the walls, organized chaos on her desk, and the gentle scent of clay and paint. This is a pleasant surprise, she smiled, though curiosity creased her brow. Is everything okay? Melissa, still feeling unwell. Julia, I need to tell you something difficult, I began, my rehearsed speech suddenly inadequate for the task. There's no gentle way to say this. Ethan and Melissa have been having an affair. Her expression froze. That's not possible. They're practically siblings. Silently, I opened the folder Frank had prepared. Selected photos, hotel receipts, bank statements, text message, transcripts. Julia's hand trembled as she examined each piece of evidence. Her face paled, then flushed. How long have you known? Since the anniversary dinner, but it's worse than just an affair. I hesitated, then played the recording of their conversation about drugging me. Julia's hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God, they were planning to. They could have killed you. I don't think that was the intention, just to incapacitate me enough to declare me incompetent. Take control of our finances. She shook her head in disbelief. 22 years I've been married to him. I thought I knew him. We sat in shared silence, two people whose lives had been built on foundations now revealed as sand. What are you going to do? She finally asked. I explained my plan, the divorce filing, the family brunch confrontation. I should be there, Julia said, a new resolve hardening her voice. They betrayed both of us. They should face both of us. Are you sure? It will be difficult. Difficult? A bitter laugh escaped her. Liam, they've been laughing behind our backs while planning to destroy our lives. They don't get to hide from what they've done. As we coordinated our approach for Sunday, Julia's expression shifted from shock to determination. They didn't just betray us, she said quietly. They underestimated us. In that moment, I recognized something in Julia I'd always valued in myself, the quiet strength that's often mistaken for passivity until it's tested. Sunday then, I confirmed. We'll meet beforehand to finalize details. As I left, I felt something unexpected amid the pain, the solidarity of shared truth, and the first hint that there might be a life worth rebuilding after all this was over. I invited Chloe to dinner at Riverside Grill, her favorite restaurant since childhood. Away from the tension that now permeated our home, I hoped to prepare her, however indirectly, for what was coming. She arrived looking like the perfect blend of Melissa and me, her mother's cheekbones, my analytical eyes. At 19, she stood on the threshold of adulthood, still viewing her parents through the lens of childhood, even as she grew into her own person. "Just us tonight?" she asked, sliding into the booth. "Is Mom working late?" "She had plans with friends," I said, the necessary lie tasting bitter. "I thought we could have some father-daughter time." Over appetizers, we discussed her studies, her friends, her plans for summer internships. I treasured these glimpses into her life, more precious now with the knowledge of how our family dynamic would soon change. "Dad, can I ask you something?" she said as our entrees arrived. "How did you know Mom was the right person, that you could trust her with your life?" The question pierced me with its innocent timing. "Why do you ask?" I managed, keeping my voice neutral. "There's this guy I've been seeing," she explained. "He says all the right things, but sometimes, I don't know, something feels off, like he's performing instead of being real." I considered my response carefully. "Trust is earned through consistency, Chloe, not just between words and actions, but over time. The person someone is in public should match who they are in private." "Like you and Mom," she smiled, the comment unintentionally cutting. "Relationships require truth to survive," I continued. "When trust is broken, it's like a glass vase that's been shattered. Sometimes it can be repaired, but you'll always see the cracks." "That sounds like personal experience talking." "Just wisdom that comes with age," I deflected. "I've seen many relationships in my life, some that thrived, others that failed. The common element in the failures was always dishonesty in some form." She nodded thoughtfully. "Mom's been acting weird lately, always on her phone, but she hides the screen when I come in, and she's been asking strange questions about your retirement accounts." My heart sank at this confirmation that Melissa's behavior had been noticed even by our daughter. "Sometimes people change," I said carefully. "Or perhaps we finally see who they've been all along." "That's depressing, Dad." "Not necessarily. Recognizing truth, even painful truth, is the first step toward building something authentic." As we shared dessert, I made sure she knew one thing with absolute clarity. "No matter what happens in life, Chloe, you can always count on my love. Family structures may change, but that never will." She gave me a curious look. "You're being very philosophical tonight." "Just treasuring this time with you," I said truthfully, "and hoping you'll remember that facing hard truths takes courage, but it's always better than living in a comfortable lie." As I drove her back to campus, I prayed I was preparing her adequately for the storm about to break over our family. Sunday morning arrived bright and clear, a beautiful day for a family gathering, or a reckoning. Julia and I met at a coffee shop an hour before brunch, finalizing our approach. The strain of the past week showed in the shadows beneath her eyes, but her resolve remained firm. "I spoke with Catherine this morning," I told her. "The process server will arrive at 1:30 during dessert." Julia nodded, twisting her wedding ring, a gesture I'd noticed had become habitual since our conversation. I still can't believe they thought they could get away with this. People convince themselves of what they want to believe, I said, including that those they're betraying won't fight back. Frank Reynolds arrived, sliding a final envelope across the table. Additional evidence from yesterday. They met again at the Marriott. And I had my tech guy recover deleted texts discussing what appears to be a backup plan involving your medication. I added these to my evidence folder, now a comprehensive record of betrayal spanning months. "Are you sure you want to do this publicly?" Frank asked. "A private confrontation might be easier." They were planning to humiliate me publicly with some sort of episode at this very brunch, I replied. They don't deserve the courtesy of privacy. At my home, Melissa was in full hostess mode, arranging flowers and directing the caterer she'd hired, an unusual expense for what was typically a casual family gathering. Her nervous energy reminded me of the anniversary dinner. Now, with context, I understood. "Everything looks wonderful," I told her, playing my part. "You've outdone yourself." "Well, family gatherings are important," she smiled, kissing my cheek with practiced affection. "Oh, I put your heart medication on the counter. Don't forget to take it before everyone arrives." I nodded, but left the pills untouched. Guests began arriving. Melissa's sister and her husband, my brother's family, a few close friends. Julia entered last, her composed exterior revealing nothing of what she knew. Ethan made a show of helping Melissa arrange drinks, their hands brushing in ways that now seemed glaringly obvious. They exchanged quick glances, confident in their secret planning. I caught Julia's eye across the room. She gave an almost imperceptible nod. It was time. I stood at the head of the dining table, raising my water glass. "Before we begin this lovely meal, I'd like to say a few words." Conversations quieted as everyone turned expectantly. Melissa smiled indulgently, while Ethan checked his watch, perhaps timing whatever they had planned for later. "Family gatherings like this are about connection," I began, "about honesty, loyalty, and trust. Values I've always believed form the foundation of any relationship worth having." Melissa's smile faltered slightly at my tone. "Unfortunately, I've recently discovered that not everyone shares these values." I reached for the folder beside my plate. "In fact, some among us have been engaged in a systematic betrayal that I feel compelled to address openly." Confused murmurs rippled through the room. Melissa's expression shifted from confusion to alarm. "Liam, what are you talking about? This isn't the time." "I disagree," I interrupted calmly. "This is exactly the time, with family present, to witness the truth." I began methodically displaying the evidence on the dining room table, narrating as I went. "These are photographs documenting a months-long affair between my wife, Melissa, and my brother-in-law, Ethan." Gasps and exclamations filled the room. Ethan half rose from his chair. "This is ridiculous." "I'm not finished," I continued, my voice steady. "These bank statements show unauthorized transfers from our joint accounts. These hotel receipts confirm their regular meetings. And most disturbing, this is evidence that at our anniversary dinner last week, Melissa attempted to drug me, part of a larger plan to have me declared mentally incompetent in order to gain control of our assets." The stunned silence that followed was broken by Melissa's forced laugh. "This is absurd. Liam must be having some kind of breakdown. He's been under tremendous stress." "I have recordings," I said quietly, pressing play on Frank's device. Melissa's and Ethan's voices filled the room, discussing their plans for the anniversary incident and what would follow once I was out of the picture. The color drained from both their faces as their own words condemned them. That's taken out of context," Ethan stammered, looking desperately at Julia, who stared back with icy composure. "You were planning to try again today," I continued, revealing the information from yesterday's surveillance. "Something involving my heart medication, I believe." I turned to our gathered family. "I apologize for this public revelation, but I felt you all deserved to know the truth, especially since you were meant to be witnesses to whatever medical emergency they had planned for me today." A sharp knock at the door interrupted the shocked silence. The process server entered, heading directly to Melissa. "Melissa Grayson, you've been served with divorce papers on grounds of adultery, financial misconduct, and attempted harm." As she numbly accepted the documents, I concluded quietly, "I thought we were celebrating 23 years of marriage, but today we're celebrating something else, the truth." The silence that followed seemed to stretch endlessly, broken finally by my sister-in-law's horrified whisper, "Melissa, tell me this isn't true." Melissa stood frozen, the divorce papers clutched in her hand, her carefully constructed world collapsing around her. Ethan had shrunk into his chair, eyes darting between Julia and the door as if calculating escape routes. "I think you both owe everyone an explanation," Julia said, her voice remarkably calm, "though I'm not sure what you could possibly say that would justify what we've just heard." Melissa's shock transformed into cold fury. "You had me investigated. You went through my personal things?" Her attempt to shift blame fell flat as murmurs of disbelief circled the table. "That's your response?" I asked quietly. "Not to deny drugging me, not to explain the affair or the financial deception, but to be angry that you were caught." Chloe, who had been silent until now, stood abruptly. "Mom, did you really try to hurt Dad?" Her voice trembled between childhood trust and adult recognition of the unthinkable. Melissa's eyes darted around the room, measuring her audience before apparently making a calculation. "Fine. You want the truth? Yes, Ethan and I are in love. We have been for years." Ethan's head jerked up in alarm. This clearly wasn't part of their script. "Melissa," he started, but she cut him off. "No, I'm done hiding. Your precious father," she spat the word in my direction, "has been a boring, predictable burden for years. I stayed for Chloe, but once she went to college," she shrugged. "I deserve happiness. Ethan makes me happy." "And the drugging attempt?" Julia asked, her voice tight with controlled anger. "Was that part of your pursuit of happiness too?" "A medical incident would have been cleaner than divorce," Melissa admitted with chilling casualness. "Liam would have been taken care of in a facility, and everyone would have felt sorry for me, the devoted wife managing her husband's decline." The room seemed to collectively inhale at her callousness. "This isn't the first time either," she added, seemingly enjoying the shock value now that her secret was exposed. "There have been others before Ethan. Liam was just too trusting to notice." I maintained my composure, though each revelation was a fresh wound. "I think we've heard enough." "Oh, I doubt that," Melissa laughed bitterly. "You think you know everything because of your little investigation? You never knew me at all, Liam. 23 years and you never really saw me." Chloe moved to stand beside me, her hand finding mine in silent support. "I'd like you both to leave," I said firmly. "The house is legally mine until the court proceedings are complete. Your belongings will be made available through our attorneys." "You can't just throw me out," Melissa protested. finally realizing the practical implications of what was happening. "Actually, he can," said a voice from the doorway. Frank Reynolds stepped forward, identification in hand. "Mrs. Grayson, Mr. Miller, I'm a licensed investigator who has documented your conspiracy to commit fraud and potentially assault. You can leave voluntarily, or we can involve the police. Your choice." The unified front of family members, now standing with me rather than her, seemed to finally penetrate Melissa's armor of indignation. "This isn't over," she hissed, gathering her purse. "You'll regret this public humiliation." "I only regret believing in someone who never existed," I replied quietly. As Melissa headed for the door, Ethan tried to follow, but Julia blocked his path. "Not so fast," she said. "I think you owe me an explanation first." "Julia, this isn't what it looks like," he began, desperation evident in his voice. "Melissa manipulated me. She pursued me. You know how persuasive she can be." Melissa whirled around, incredulous. "Are you serious? You're going to blame me now?" "You said we'd never have to face them like this," Ethan hissed. "You promised a clean break after Liam was—" "After I was what, Ethan?" I interjected. "Incapacitated? Institutionalized? Dead?" The assembled family members watched in stunned silence as the full extent of the betrayal unfolded before them. "It wasn't supposed to happen this way," Melissa said, a strange calm settling over her. "But since we're being honest, let's be completely honest." She turned to face the room, something almost theatrical in her stance. "I've been unhappy for years. Liam provided stability, financial security, respectability, all the things a woman of my generation was taught to value, but passion, connection, understanding, those I found elsewhere." "Mom!" Chloe protested, her face flushing with embarrassment and anger. "It's time you knew the truth too, darling. The perfect family you thought you had was always a performance. Your father was oblivious, so caught up in being the reliable provider that he never noticed when I started looking elsewhere. First it was David from the tennis club, then Michael from the Arts Council. Each name landed like a physical blow, but I maintained my composure, refusing to give her the satisfaction of seeing me crumble. Ethan was different," she continued. "We connected on a deeper level. We made plans. Real plans for a future together. Plans that required stealing my father's money and drugging him," Chloe said, her voice hard with disillusionment. "We preferred to think of it as accelerating an inevitable transition," Melissa replied smoothly. "Your father is getting older. Managing his condition would have been a kindness, really." "My condition of being an inconvenient husband?" I asked. "Your condition of standing between me and the life I deserved," she shot back. "Do you have any idea how suffocating it's been, playing the devoted wife to a man who never really saw me, who thought anniversary dinners and comfortable routines were enough?" Her words revealed a stranger wearing my wife's face, someone I'd shared a bed with for 23 years, but apparently never known. "I won't apologize for wanting more," she concluded defiantly. "The only thing I regret is failing to execute our plan properly." The room fell silent at her complete lack of remorse. No one moved to defend her, to question my evidence, or to suggest reconciliation. In her unbridled honesty, Melissa had accomplished what my carefully gathered evidence might not have. She had revealed herself fully, leaving no doubt about the justice of what would follow. "I think we've heard enough," my brother finally said, breaking the horrified silence. "Melissa, I suggest you leave now, while you still have a shred of dignity left." As she gathered her things, she paused beside me. "This isn't the end, Liam. I know things about you, too." "The difference is," I replied quietly, I have nothing to hide. With Melissa's dramatic exit, all eyes turned to Ethan, who seemed to physically shrink under the collective gaze of the family. Julia stood before him, arms crossed, waiting. "Julia, please," he began, his voice taking on a pleading tone. "This got completely out of hand. I never meant for it to go this far." "Which part?" Julia asked coldly. "The affair with my sister. The plan to drug my brother-in-law, or the conspiracy to steal his assets? You don't understand. Melissa can be very persuasive. She started it. She pursued me. I was weak, I admit that. But the rest, the drugging, the financial stuff, that was all her idea. I watched my brother-in-law's desperate attempt to salvage something from the wreckage, recognizing the pattern of a man who had never fully accepted responsibility for his actions. "I have my own evidence, Ethan," Julia said, surprising both him and me as she produced a folder from her bag. "After Liam told me about your affair, I did some investigating of my own." She spread photographs across the table. Ethan withdrawing cash from ATMs. Ethan meeting with someone I recognized as Melissa's divorce attorney, Ethan, in a jewelry store examining expensive watches. "You used our savings," Julia stated flatly. $50,000 withdrawn over the past 4 months. Money we were saving for retirement. Ethan paled. "I can explain, and then there's this," she continued, placing a real estate brochure on the table. "A lakefront property in your name only. Purchased 3 weeks ago without my knowledge or consent." I felt a stab of sympathy for Julia. While I'd been focused on Melissa's betrayal, she had been conducting her own painful investigation. "But the worst part," Julia continued, her voice finally breaking slightly, "is what you did to the business." This was news to me. Ethan and I had been partners in a small investment firm until my semi-retirement 3 years ago, though I'd maintained a financial interest. "What about the business?" I asked sharply. Julia looked at me apologetically. "He's been siphoning funds from the company accounts, using your digital signature to authorize transfers, at least $300,000 over the past year." The room fell silent again. Business fraud elevated this beyond a personal betrayal to potential criminal activity. "Is this true?" I asked Ethan directly. His response was to put his head in his hands, his shoulders beginning to shake. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this," he mumbled. "We were going to pay it all back once everything was settled." "Once I was out of the picture, you mean," I clarified. He didn't deny it. Julia placed her wedding ring on the table with deliberate care. "I want you out of the house by evening. My lawyer will contact you tomorrow." "Julia, please!" Ethan reached for her hand, but she stepped back. "Don't touch me," she said quietly. "I don't know who you are anymore. I'm not sure I ever did." My nephew, Eric, stepped forward. "Uncle Ethan, I think you should leave now. I'll drive you to a hotel." As Ethan was led from the room, he cast one last desperate look at Julia. "I still love you." Her response was devastating in its simplicity. "We deserved better than both of you." As the door closed behind him, the room collectively exhaled, as if a toxin had finally been removed from our shared air. The abandoned brunch sat untouched on the dining table, as the family attempted to process what had just happened. The dramatic exit of Melissa and Ethan had left a void that no one quite knew how to fill. "I'm so sorry you all had to witness this," I said finally, breaking the uncomfortable silence. I debated handling it privately, but given their plans for today, I felt everyone needed to know the truth. My sister reached across the table to squeeze my hand. "You have nothing to apologize for, Liam. We're all shocked, but better to know than to be kept in the dark." "I can't believe Mom would do this," Chloe said, her voice small. "All these years. Was everything just an act?" I put my arm around her shoulders. "Not everything. Her love for you was real, Chloe, that I'm certain of. But she was willing to hurt you," Chloe persisted. "To drug you. How could she do that to someone she was supposed to love?" Julia joined us, her own shock giving way to practical concern. "Perhaps we should all sit down and have some of this food. Shock is easier to handle with a little nourishment." Slowly, the family began to rearrange themselves. The empty chairs where Melissa and Ethan had sat were a stark reminder of what had been lost, but also what had been revealed, and perhaps what might now be possible. As plates were filled and conversations tentatively resumed, I noticed how the family naturally reorganized. Chloe stayed close to me, Julia joined our end of the table, and the others formed a protective circle of support. "What happens now?" my brother asked, voicing the question on everyone's mind. "Legally, things will proceed as they must," I explained. "The divorce, probably criminal charges for the drugging attempt and financial fraud, but as a family, we'll heal. Different, perhaps, but still connected." "Will you stay in the house?" Julia asked. "For now. It's Chloe's home when she's not at college. Some stability seems important." Chloe nodded gratefully. "I don't think I could handle losing you and the house at the same time." "You're not losing me," I assured her. "And you'll find your relationship with your mother will evolve too. It will be different, but it doesn't have to end completely." "I'm not sure I want a relationship with her right now," Chloe admitted. "I need time." "Time is something we all need," Julia agreed. "And perhaps a fresh start." As the afternoon progressed, the conversation gradually shifted from the immediate shock to practical concerns, changing security codes, updating legal documents, planning for the weeks ahead. Through it all, I felt a growing sense of possibility beneath the pain. When the family finally began to depart, each offered words of support and promises to stay closely connected. Julia was the last to leave, helping me and Chloe clear the remains of the uneaten feast. "I never saw this coming," she admitted as we worked side by side. "All those years, I thought we knew them." "Perhaps we knew who we thought they were," I suggested. "Or who we needed them to be." She nodded thoughtfully. "I keep thinking about all the signs I missed." "We both did. But that's behind us now." As she prepared to leave, Julia paused at the door. "Liam, I know we're both in for a difficult time with the legal proceedings, but I hope we can support each other through this. You and Chloe are still family to me." "We always will be," I promised. After she left, Chloe and I sat in the quiet living room, the house feeling simultaneously emptier and somehow lighter. "Dad," she said finally, "I'm staying here with you tonight." "I don't want you to be alone." "I'd like that," I admitted. "It's going to be a strange adjustment." "For both of us," she agreed, "but we'll get through it together." As darkness fell outside, I realized that while one chapter of my life had ended in betrayal, another was beginning, one built on truth, difficult as it was, rather than comfortable deception. And in that truth lay the possibility of genuine connection with those who truly deserved my trust. All rise. Court is now in session, the Honorable Judge Eleanor Winters presiding. 1 month after the family brunch revelation, the divorce proceedings had reached their first major hearing. Melissa sat with her attorney on one side of the courtroom, while Catherine Wells and I occupied the other. The gallery behind us contained several family members, including Chloe and, surprisingly, Julia. Judge Winters, a stern woman in her 60s with steel-rimmed glasses, reviewed the documents before her with methodical care. This is case number 2025 DR 4872, Grayson v. Grayson. We're here today to address the petition for temporary orders regarding residence, support, and asset freeze pending final divorce decree. She looked up, surveying the parties. I've reviewed the filings, including the rather extraordinary evidence presented by the petitioner. Miss Swells, please proceed. Catherine stood, projecting calm authority. Your Honor, my client is seeking exclusive use of the marital home during these proceedings, a comprehensive freeze on all joint assets pending equitable distribution, and primary custody arrangements for their daughter, who, though of legal age, is still financially dependent as a college student. Melissa's attorney, a sharply dressed man with an aggressive demeanor, rose quickly. Your Honor, my client contests these requests as excessive and punitive. Mrs. Grayson has equal right to the marital home and assets. The alleged misconduct has been greatly exaggerated. Judge Winters held up her hand. Counselor, I've reviewed the evidence, including audio recordings, financial documentation, and witness statements regarding an alleged attempt to drug Mr. Grayson. Are you suggesting these materials are fabricated? Not fabricated, Your Honor, but taken out of context and mischaracterized. Indeed, the judge's eyebrow rose skeptically. And the context that would explain a recorded conversation about drugging one's spouse and having them declared incompetent would be— Melissa's attorney faltered, while Melissa herself maintained a stony expression. I thought not, the judge continued. Having reviewed the evidence thoroughly, I find the petitioner's requests not only reasonable, but necessary for his protection. She made several notations on her documents before continuing. Temporary orders are as follows. Mr. Grayson shall retain exclusive use of the marital residence. All joint assets are frozen pending final distribution, with the exception of Mr. Grayson's personal accounts, which evidence suggests were not compromised by Mrs. Grayson's activities. Mrs. Grayson will have supervised visitation with her daughter, should Miss Chloe Grayson wish such contact. Melissa visibly flinched at the mention of supervised visitation. Furthermore, the judge continued, given the serious nature of the allegations involving attempted incapacitation, I am referring this matter to the district attorney's office for review of potential criminal charges. This court takes such allegations extremely seriously. The gavel came down with finality. Orders to be formalized in writing by end of business today. We're adjourned. As we gathered our materials to leave, I caught Melissa's gaze across the courtroom. For the first time since the confrontation, I saw something besides defiance in her eyes, the dawning realization that her actions had consequences she hadn't anticipated. Outside, Chloe waited with Julia, both offering supportive hugs. The judge believed you, Chloe said, relief evident in her voice. The evidence was compelling, Catherine explained, and Judge Winters has a reputation for seeing through manipulation. This is just the beginning, but it's a very good start. As we walked to the parking lot, Julia fell into step beside me. How are you really doing, Liam? Better than I expected, I admitted. There's a certain relief in having everything in the open. No more pretending. I know exactly what you mean, she nodded. It's painful, but cleaner somehow. We paused by our cars. Dinner this weekend, she suggested. I found a new Italian place that isn't Giovanni's. I smiled at her understanding. I'd like that. Maybe Chloe can join us? Family dinner, Julia agreed. The real kind. As I drove home, I reflected on the judge's words about evidence and truth. After decades of financial analysis, I should have known. Numbers don't lie, and neither do actions. The truth, painful as it was, had set a new foundation for whatever came next. 2 evenings later, Chloe and I sat on the back porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and gold. She had moved most of her things back home for the summer, bringing life back to rooms that had felt empty after Melissa's departure. "I got a text from Mom today," she said, breaking our comfortable silence. "She wants to meet for coffee next week." I considered my response carefully. "How do you feel about that?" "Conflicted." Chloe tucked her legs beneath her on the porch swing. "Part of me never wants to see her again after what she did to you, but another part still remembers her as Mom, you know. The person who bandaged my knees and helped with school projects. Those memories are real, Chloe. Whatever happened between your mother and me doesn't erase the good parts of your relationship with her. But how can I trust anything about her now?" The pain in her voice was evident. Was she always this person? Did I just never see it? I sighed, searching for wisdom in a situation where I had few answers myself. "I don't think people are usually all one thing. Your mother made terrible choices, especially recently. But that doesn't mean every moment of the past 23 years was a lie. Were there signs? Things you noticed but ignored?" Looking back, yes. Inconsistencies in her stories, unexplained absences, changes in behavior. But when you love someone, you tend to explain these things away. You create narratives that protect the image you have of them. Chloe was quiet for a moment. "You know what bothers me most? Not just that she cheated or tried to hurt you. It's that she showed no remorse, none at all." "That surprised me too," I admitted. "I always thought I knew who she was, even in conflict." But perhaps that's the hardest lesson in all this. Sometimes we don't really know the people closest to us. So how do we ever trust anyone? The question held all the urgency of her 19 years. I think trust has to be earned continuously, not given once and forgotten. People reveal themselves through patterns of behavior over time. The trick is paying attention to the patterns, not just the promises. Chloe leaned against my shoulder, a gesture that reminded me of her childhood. "I'm still going to meet her. I need to understand for myself." "That's your right. Just remember that you get to set boundaries about what kind of relationship you want going forward." "Like you did," she observed. "You didn't just react emotionally. You gathered evidence, consulted professionals, and then made your move." I smiled at her perception. "That's the financial analyst in me. Evidence before action. It's a good approach." She straightened up, meeting my eyes directly. "Dad, I need to ask you something. Are you really okay? You've been so focused on handling everything practically, but what about emotionally?" The question caught me off guard. "I'm processing," I said honestly. "There's anger, certainly, hurt, a sense of time wasted, but also, strangely, relief, like I've been carrying a weight I didn't know about, and now it's gone." "And the future? What do you want for yourself now?" I hadn't allowed myself to think that far ahead, focused as I'd been on legal proceedings and Chloe's well-being. "I'm not sure yet. To rebuild, certainly. To find peace with what happened. Beyond that," I shrugged, "I'm open to possibilities." "Like Julia?" Chloe asked, with surprising directness. "What do you mean?" "Dad, I'm 19, not blind. I've seen how you two connect, how you support each other through this." I felt a flush of embarrassment mixed with something else. Possibility, perhaps. "Julia and I are friends, Chloe. We're both dealing with similar betrayals." "And that's all?" "For now, yes. We both need time to heal before considering anything else." She nodded, seemingly satisfied. Just know that if something did develop there, I'd be okay with it. More than okay, actually. I put my arm around her shoulders, grateful for her maturity and insight. One day at a time, that's all any of us can manage right now. As the last light faded from the sky, I felt a sense of peace that had eluded me since the anniversary dinner. The truth had been painful, but it had also been clarifying. And in that clarity, I could finally see a path forward. 6 months after the family brunch that changed everything, Julia, Chloe, and I shared dinner at my home, celebrating Chloe's successful completion of her fall semester. The house had been transformed in subtle ways, rearranged furniture, new artwork, Melissa's presence gradually erased through 1,000 small changes. To excellent grades and new beginnings, I toasted, raising my glass. And to family, the ones who stay, Chloe added, with wisdom beyond her years. Julia smiled, raising her own glass. To truth, however difficult. The divorce had been finalized a month earlier, with terms heavily favoring my position given the evidence of Melissa's misconduct. She had ultimately moved to Arizona with Ethan, both seeking to escape the community that had witnessed their exposure. Chloe maintained minimal contact with her mother, occasional phone calls and text messages, boundaries firmly in place. The supervised visitation requirement had been lifted, but Chloe had chosen to keep interactions limited and controlled. "I have news," Julia announced as we finished our meal. "The business partnership is officially dissolved. The lawyers finalized everything yesterday." After Ethan's financial misconduct had been discovered, Julia and I had worked together to salvage what remained of the investment firm. While Ethan faced legal consequences for his actions, we had gradually rebuilt client trust and restructured the company. "That calls for dessert," I decided, bringing out the cheesecake I'd prepared earlier. "To new business ventures." "Speaking of which," Julia continued, "I've been thinking about our discussion regarding the expansion into sustainable investments. I have some research I'd like to show you." She spread documents across the cleared table, her enthusiasm infectious as she outlined her vision. Working together these past months had revealed Julia's unexpected business acumen, talents that had been overshadowed during her marriage to Ethan. "This could work," I agreed, reviewing her projections. "It aligns perfectly with what younger investors are looking for." Chloe, watching us with amusement, suddenly stood. "I just remembered I promised to video chat with my roommate about our housing plans for next semester. Don't wait up." After she left, Julia laughed softly. "Subtle, isn't she?" "About as subtle as a neon sign," I agreed. "She's been playing matchmaker for months." A comfortable silence fell between us, filled with unspoken possibility. "Liam," Julia said finally, "we've been through a lot together this year." "We have. And I value our friendship, our business partnership." "But," I prompted gently, sensing her hesitation, "but I've been wondering if there might be more." She met my eyes directly, the forthrightness I'd come to admire clear in her gaze. "I understand if it's too soon or if you're not interested in—" I reached across the table, taking her hand in mine. "I've been wondering the same thing." Her smile held relief and something warmer. "Really?" "Really. But you're right. We've both been through significant trauma. We should be careful. Take things slowly." "Absolutely," she agreed. "The last thing either of us needs is to rush into something new without processing the past." I gently squeezed her hand. "That said, I've come to care for you deeply, Julia, and not just as a friend or business partner." "I feel the same way." Her fingers intertwined with mine. "So, slow and mindful it is." As we sat together, the business plans temporarily forgotten, I felt something I hadn't expected to feel again. Anticipation, not just of romance, but of building something authentic, founded on mutual respect and genuine understanding. Later, after Julia had gone home with plans to return for dinner the following weekend, I stood on the back porch where Chloe and I had talked months earlier. The night was clear, stars visible despite the city lights, the air crisp with early winter. 23 years of marriage had ended in betrayal, but that ending had revealed truths I might never have discovered otherwise. About myself, about resilience, and about the possibility of beginning again with clear eyes and an open heart. The future remained unwritten, but for the first time in longer than I could remember, I looked forward to turning the page. Truth, like glass, appears fragile until tested. When I switched those anniversary champagne glasses, I couldn't have known I was also exchanging comfortable deception for painful reality. The toast that was meant to mark 23 years instead marked the beginning of clarity. They say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, but I've found what doesn't kill you simply reveals who you truly are. When faced with betrayal, we can collapse into bitterness or rise with dignity. The choice isn't in what happens to us, but in how we respond when the unthinkable occurs. Protecting yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. Setting boundaries isn't cruel, it's healthy. And requiring respect isn't demanding, it's essential. The aftermath of betrayal creates an unexpected opportunity. Like clearing overgrown brush reveals the true landscape. Removing deception from your life shows you what remains, and what remains is what matters. For me, it was my daughter's unwavering support, unexpected friendships that deepened in crisis, and the discovery of my own resilience. I've learned that we teach the next generation not through lectures, but through living. Chloe watched as I chose truth over comfortable lies, dignity over vengeance, and forward movement over backward gazing. These lessons, painful as they were, may prove more valuable than years of well-intentioned advice. Perhaps the most surprising discovery was gratitude, not for the betrayal, but for the clarity that followed. There's a strange liberation in having illusions stripped away, in seeing clearly what was previously obscured by hope or habit. Whatever challenges you face in your own relationships, remember that dignity doesn't demand perfection, just authenticity. Truth may not always bring comfort, but it always brings possibility. And in that possibility lies the promise of building something genuine, something worthy of the wisdom we've earned through living.